We are going to keep rolling with our program, and at this point, I'd like to welcome Alan Mills, who is going to speak to us now. So let's give him a big hand. Alan Mills!
It's a very small club. It's a club. So, my name is Alan Mills. I'm the Executive Director of the Uptown People's Law Center, located about 2 blocks south of here. We've been in the neighborhood since about 1975. What do? We represent poor and working people. We represent people who are being evicted from their houses. We represent people who are disabled, who have been wrongfully denied Social Security benefits. And we represent prisoners whose rights have been abused in our massively overbuilt correction system in the United States. We only work in one. So why do I hear about tiny houses? You know, I've lived in Uptown since about 1978. And this community has rather dramatically changed in those years. When I moved here, it was full of low-income people, and it still has a lot of them, but at that time, most low-income people in this neighborhood lived in private houses. They just paid their work, they went to work, they paid their rent, they survived. A lot of activity on the street, people hanging out in the corners all day long, people playing horseshoes out on the street, cars going by, people fixing their cars right on the street. You don't see that stuff anymore. Now you see Jaguars parked on the street. Now the poor people who live in this neighborhood are largely living in subsidized housing, which is a good thing, and it didn't happen by accident. It happened because people in this neighborhood fought to have low-income housing here, fought to keep subsidized housing here. This community wanted subsidized housing when every other community in the city was saying, no, we don't want it. Or the federal court said you can't put more low-income housing in some communities that are overwhelmed. So for many years, Uptown has gradually changed so that today, the vast majority of privately owned housing, or either condominiums or fairly high rent apartments, a couple $1,000s for one bedroom is not unheard of anywhere in Uptown. Something most people can't afford. And remember, when we talk about numbers, for people on Social Security disability, SSI, their income is a little less than $750 a month. So obviously, if you're paying $1,000 a month, you're not on SSI. That's my definition of low income, something that somebody on SSI can afford and can still live their lives. There's not much of that housing left. But there's still some in Uptown. Unfortunately, what there is in really bad shape. We just represented somebody who had a shower, but there were actually no tiles in the shower. They had all fallen down, and they wanted to put garbage bags over where the tiles should be. There was a toilet, but the toilet upstairs leaked through the roof, so she had a huge big umbrella, a golf umbrella she put over the toilet, so you could swim out without the upstairs toilet coming down on you as you're trying to go to the bathroom. It didn't have a sink at all. You're supposed to wash your hands in the bathroom. The landlord was still insisting that she pay full rent, though. Said that nothing needs to be fixed here. She finally got sick of this, withheld 1 month's rent. He most to throw her out of the house, saying you have to pay full rent, even though the law is very clear that if you as a landlord, don't maintain your house, you as a tenant don't have to pay full price for it. Well, she didn't get evicted. We entered into an agreement with the landlord that she could stay there, and he agreed to fix it, and he agreed not to raise her rent. So she's saved, but in the meantime, Uptown has lost, in the last 7 years, about 1,000 units, a little more than 1,000 units of low-cost housing, privately owned low-cost housing. Right up here on Lawrence Avenue, we lost the Lawrence House. Used to be all low income. Now it's a very nice pool, fancy lobby, little mini apartments. They didn't actually make the apartments any bigger. They just kind of doubled the price and put in granite countertop or countertop because it's only got about 3 square feet of countertop. You're not supposed to actually cook in it, but apparently there's a whole bunch of single people who don't mind living in these tiny little apartments and never actually coming home. They just sleep there. They go out in restaurants and clubs and all that kind of stuff to eat and drink and party all night long. I don't know who all these people are, but that building is full of them now. Same with the Norman Hotel down on Wilson Abbey, down the other side of the L tracks going down there. The Norman Hotel used to be also low income, and half of it was rented out to people who had mental health problems, subsidized through programs, various programs. And the rest of it was all privately owned. owners spent a lot of money rehabbing it, making sure that they could keep low-income people there. And then flats came along and bought it out, and it's also these many little luxury apartments. Chateau Hotel, down in like just south of Irving on Broadway. Terrible place to live. Landlords had allowed it to deteriorate for years and years and years without putting a penny into it. So I'm not going to say it's a great place to live. But people on SSI could afford to live there. They were paying $500 a month, which is a lot if you only make $750, but at least it's affordable. It's not anymore. It was close to. All those people were forced to move out. Now it's fancy little apartments. And then lots and lots of individual buildings that have gone condo or high rent or whatever. We thought the Wilson Men's Club was going to survive. Over the last few years, many people have fought to keep it open. There have been demonstrations in front of Alderman Kaplan's office. He tried to close it a couple different times. First thing he did was try to bring in a raft of building inspectors, go through the whole building, wrote up 200 or so violations on the building. The owner actually fixed all those violations, much to the alderman's dismay. So they kept it open. City inspectors come along, and they say, it's fine, no, we can't close this. So then the alderman introduces an ordinance in the city council saying, and the only reason places like the Wilson Men's Club are okay is because many, many years ago, they were outlawed in general, but the old ones were grandfathered in. So there's 2 left in Chicago, one here and one down, ironically, in the Loop, on South Park, which is right across from the Metropolitan Correctional Center, the jail downtown. So those are the only 2 left, the Ewing Annex and the one in Wilson. Only 2 of these little cubicle hotels. They don't have real rooms. They have like chicken wire on top. But they're really cheap, right? Again, $500 a month. So the landlord fixed it all, passed inspection. So then the alderman passed an ordinance, or introduced an ordinance, saying that the grandfather clause that let them stay open should be repealed. And they'd have to come up to code, which of course they wouldn't, and then ripping out all the insides. That too failed. Lots of demonstrations again. Lots of people from the community got together to make sure that didn't pass. We actually sent the city council a letter saying that it was one of the very few places in the city of Chicago that all races could live in a community that was also integrated for cheap rent. There's some other cheap rent places, but they're almost all in all black communities, a couple in all white communities, but the numbers of them that are in an integrated community was 0. And the city of Chicago has an obligation, under the law, federal law, to foster integrated communities. So here they're going to destroy a low-income building that was the only place people could live in an integrated community. So politics is wonderful. So the city of Chicago, the mayor comes up with this bright idea. He creates a brand new committee in city council, building and zoning, and puts them together. It's a joint committee, two existing committees. And he assigns this ordinance to that committee, which then never meets. Never meets. So nobody voted against this ordinance, nobody voted for the favor of this ordinance. It's just sitting there in limbo in city council forever. So the alderman got frustrated, that one didn't work either. Finally, he puts enough pressure on the owner decides to sell it. Now, a decade or so ago, some of us got together and forced the city to pass a SRO preservation ordinance. So you can't just sell a building that's an SRO. You actually have to give low-income people an opportunity, or low-income providers, not-for-profits, people like that, an opportunity to buy the buildings first. They have sort of right of first refusal. A bunch of not-for-profits negotiated with the owner. He wasn't really interested in selling. Eventually they made an offer, but it was an offer that was over time. I mean, very few people who were trying to build low-income housing have enough money to buy a whole bunch of units all at once. So they needed a mortgage, they needed a payment plan, that kind of thing. Owner said, nope, not interested in a payment plan. Somebody came along, offered him full price, cash money. Of course, he took that. Now it's in the process of being converted. The owner agreed to keep 15-20% of those units low income, but he all of a sudden changed the definition of low income. Remember I said there was like $500 a month in there before? There were like maybe 200-300 units like that in the Wilson Men's Club. Well, first of all, they're reducing the total number of units. So now there'll be a little less than 100, combining lots and lots of units. So it's less than 100. So he's only keeping about 15% of those. So instead of having a couple hundred units at $500 a month, he's going to have about 12 units. And he's redefined affordable to $1,000 a month. Which, of course, if you're back on that SSI person making $750 a month, you can't afford it anymore. So where have all these people gone? Where have this 1,000 units? Those people didn't just disappear. Well, many of them ended up under the bridge here, on Wilson or Lawrence or in Foster. And many people in this room supported that group as the police continued to harass them over and over again. Many of you were there the day the police showed up, hundreds of police officers to make sure that they would move out for the new construction. Never seen such a concentration of police not for crime, but just to move people away, just to get people out of their houses. It was amazing. It was like the Gestapo. So they dispersed everywhere, and it was to fix the bridges. And the bridges didn't need fixing, they were kind of falling down. But where are they now? They're spread all over the place, and what's on those bridges now? They built a fence, they built pylons down the middle of it, they made half of it a bike path, half of it for walking. And you know where there are bike paths on the sidewalks in the city of Chicago? There. And there's one of them downtown, just to the west of the loop. And you know what was there before they put the bike paths on the sidewalk down there? A tent city. You get the pattern here? The city is using its powers to drive poor people out of their homes. They're using their powers to drive people out of Uptown, this community right here. And they're using the police force as the backup to do it. They're criminalizing being poor. Because the excuse they give for harassing people, because they moved out from under the viaducts, and they moved around the corner to the land that was free. Nobody was using it. They just set up their tents there on the vacant land. And the state said, no, there's an ordinance that says you can't put a tent on private property or municipal property. So they moved it over in the strip between the sidewalk and the street down there. And they said, no, there's an ordinance in the city of Chicago saying you can't rest anything on the sidewalk, on the public way. There is such an ordinance, but it was originally meant for stores. Like when everybody's coffee unloads their truck in the morning and they put the donuts or whatever they have out there now on the sidewalk, you can't just leave them there if you're a store. You got to bring them inside. You can't leave them on the sidewalk out there. That's what it was designed for. It was never meant to have anything to do with homeless people. It was meant so the businesses didn't leave their stuff out on the sidewalk. But all of a sudden, when they started using this vacant area between the sidewalk and the streets, they said, this ordinance, it says you can't put anything on the sidewalk. So first they moved the tents out. They said, no, tents are structures. You need a building permit, you need to get approval by the city, you have to pay like a couple $100 per tent to make sure it's been inspected and it's safe. It's a tent, people, it's not a high-rise building. But nonetheless, as I said, so then there were people sleeping just with sleeping bags. They said, no, it says you can't put anything on the public way. Well, how about all those people who are downtown in the loop, waiting for a bus and they put a briefcase down? Does the police harass them? No, of course not. This is a law like so many that are only enforced against poor people. Only against poor people. What's the result of all this? The result of all this is a prison system which is exploding nationwide. It is full of people who we are trying to hide instead of solving problems like homelessness, like mental illness, like the disparity of income in this country. And that disparity, it's really hard to get a grasp on. There are 5 individuals in this country who own as much stuff as the poorest half of the country. Half the people in the United States own exactly the same amount as 5 people in the United States. That is an unbelievable number. The other day, the stock market had some blip in it. Amazon, after President Trump tweeted out something about how they should be shut down, the stock went way down. Zuckerberg, the owner of a big chunk of Facebook, lost like $100 million in one day. And imagine, you can lose $100 million in one day and not have any impact on your life whatsoever. $100 million is enough to solve homelessness in the city of Chicago. We could build not just a tiny house, but a big house for every single homeless person in the city of Chicago. The wealth disparity in this country is unbelievable. It's hard to wrap your mind around these numbers that are in billions. And now Apple, the people who make the cell phone that I have in my pocket, they're worth $1 trillion, a number that no other company in the history of the world has ever reached, $1 trillion. This is money that is unbelievable for the rest of us. And so do we worry about actually solving these problems, income disparity, homelessness, the lack of health care, poisoned water? And if you think it's just in Flint, it is not. Chicago has just as bad a problem as Flint does, but we haven't caught it yet. All All of our pipes are made out of lead too. All our schools have water that is infested with lead. If you go around the Park District, you'll see that all the water fountains are either running continuously or not working at all. Why is that? So lead can't accumulate in the pipes and you can't drink it because they're all lead infused. All of those problems we don't want to solve in this country. Instead, we want to hide those problems behind prison walls. That's why this country locks up more people than any country in the history of the world, both in terms of absolute numbers and in terms of a percentage of our population. We lock up more people than China, we lock up more people than India, both countries that have 5, 6, 7, many times as many people as we do. We lock up a higher percentage of people than Russia did at the height of the gulags. And of course, as you probably all know, this experiment mass incarceration is not evenly distributed among the population. Poor people, and particularly poor people of color, and particularly young black men, are bearing the brunt of this great experiment mass incarceration we're doing. Everybody in this society uses drugs at the same rate. Rich, poor, black, white, doesn't matter. They all use drugs at approximately the same rate. So the United States is like 70% white, 65% white, 65% of drug users are white. It's about 15% black, 15% of the drug users are black. Same thing, right? But not when you look at who goes to prison for using drugs, or for possession of drugs, or sales of drugs. It's exactly reversed. Even only 15% of drug users are black, almost 50% of the people in prison for drugs are black. So who's in prison has nothing to do with who violates the law. The other example, Facebook. Anybody here on Facebook? A few of you have Facebook accounts, right? And I don't want you to have to like tattle on yourselves, but does anybody here know somebody who's not using their full legal name on Facebook? That somebody knows them. How many of you know that that's a felony? According to the United States government, using Facebook without using your real legal name on it is a felony. But does the FBI set up little stings to catch people on Facebook using the false names? Do they go around checking people's names, running their databases, asking you for birth certificates? No, they don't do that. If they did that, the prison system would be full of middle-class white people. And we would put up a lot for those people because we're the ones who power this society. So it's all about what laws we choose to enforce, and most importantly, who we choose to enforce them against. We need to get people off the street. We need to use the community resources to start building homes. The United States government, they stopped building subsidized housing. I don't know if people know this. We used to have public housing all over the place. The United States government stopped building public housing years ago. They don't do that anymore. They run Section 8 programs, and there's a long, long waiting list to get on Section 8. At this point, years and years and years before you get a Section 8 certificate. But even that just drives up the price of housing, because then what used to be low-cost housing, you get subsidized by the government, so that price goes up, and it doesn't actually increase the supply of really cheap housing. It doesn't do that. The government needs to build low-income housing, but it's not doing that. We need to increase the supply of low-income housing. That's the only way we're going to solve the homeless problem in this country, is increase the supply of low-cost housing, wrap that housing around with the kinds of services that the government is also cutting: mental health care, physical care, job readiness, job training, alcohol abuse, and other substance abuse treatment. All those things need to get wrapped together around the housing, but you can't deliver those services until people have a place to live, because you can't find them, because they're working too hard to survive every day. You need a community, because people support each other. That's how everybody survives, is through communities. You can't isolate people here and there and spread them all over the city and expect them to survive. We've talked to people who used to be under that viaduct, who are now in dire straits because when they were under the viaducts, they could support each other. When they were under the viaducts, people knew where to bring them tents. When they're under the viaducts, people knew where to bring them food. Now when they're scattered all over the place, nobody knows how to get them at all. There's no food for them, there's no water for them, there's no anything for them. They need community, just like I need community, just like all of you are in community. Community is what makes us safe. Community is what makes it possible to live. We need to build communities that low-income people can live in. Low-cost housing, low-income people, get them in it. Tiny homes is a great way to do that because nobody else is doing it. Get our model together, get some of them built, and then show the government that this is what we have to do. We have to provide homes for people. If we don't, we're never going to solve our problems. We're just going to see more and more and more people wandering the streets and sleeping under bridges when they get away with it. Thank you very much.
Woo! But I'd like just to remind you, if you're coming or leaving, do it through the door over there. On the inside, there's a smaller auditorium that you can access down that hall on your right. There's some art pieces that are there for silent auction. Please continue to help yourself to the food. But I do also want to point out that Sarah, wave your hand and say hi. Lovely Sarah over here is taking raffle tickets. We're having like a 50-50 raffle, so the winner of the raffle gets half a pound, half the rest goes to Chicago Tiny House. We are also selling our t-shirts designed in part by the great Nathan Ingerson. That's my son. And all the proceeds from the t-shirts go to help us. And let's see, what else in terms of housekeeping? Brian, am I forgetting anything? Am I forgetting anything?
Bathrooms are to the right here.
Oh yeah, bathrooms. You can access the men's and ladies' room through this hallway. All right. Let's have another hand for Alan Mills. Thank you so much. Such valuable, pointed presentation, and it inspires me to keep pushing forward. I would love to see our efforts open the door, not just for us to provide tiny house housing, but for anybody. And that's the real push right now, is to get the laws changed, get the zoning changed, get the city to get over itself, to let this happen, because there's a lot of people who want to make a change through tiny houses, and it shouldn't be that hard. So anyway, keep pushing, keep contributing, and whatever you can do to move the needle so that the city will allow this to happen, and we can meet a very real need that touches all of us, and especially the poorest and most vulnerable among us.